People. Today we find ourselves in quite an oddball car. We are driving a 2008 Saab 9.3 Turbo X. Now this is a car that I'll be the first to admit I did not know existed. Now I knew the Saab 9.3 existed, but this particular version with its 2.8 liter turbo 6-cylinder and all-wheel drive and very limited numbers, more on that later, I had no idea this was out there. Full disclosure, this is my car. Once I saw it, did my research, drove it, loved it, I went ahead and pulled the trigger. Now for a very abbreviated history, Saab was an airplane manufacturer that decided they'd try their hand at making cars. Did a lot of platform sharing over the years due to budget constraints with other brands, and this one is from the last era of Saab, which was the GM era. Now, while it does platform share with some European GM products, a lot of it is bespoke Saab, and that was part of their issue. Basically, GM would give Saab a car and say, change the bodywork and the badges, and then leave it, and Saab couldn't leave it. So much so that the car that this shared a platform with, which was sold as an Opel and a Vauxhall, had a completely different wheelbase than this car, because they just wanted to do things their own way and were stubborn, and I like that. So I like the story with Saab, and when you've been into cars as long as some of us have, it's you kind of feel like you've experienced nearly everything in the kind of modern era and seen kind of everything, and for me this was like a completely new zone to play in. So yeah, the numbers on this car are very low. We're talking like 2,000 of these ever made. The Turbo X, 1 year only, 2008. Only came in one color, which is this one, jet black metallic, which is kind of a purple metal flake black. So in the Turbo X, you get a 2.8 liter V6 with a turbocharger. And this feels now sort of old school turbocharger because there is a bit of lag and you do have to wait for it to come on. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing, because cars this age are starting to stray into sort of that modern classic era. You can't really judge them in the eyes of brand new cars. So performance wise, the numbers aren't completely staggering. 0 to 60s in the 5-second range, which basic 2-liter Audis will do that now. And there's no dual clutch transmission in this car. This car did come in a manual. Only 600 of these total came to the US, and less than half of those were manual. So I didn't. Yeah, this one has the Aisin 6-speed automatic, which is a Japanese-made transmission. It works fine. You can shift it yourself, and it's it's more of a suggestion, but it will hold it in gear. It doesn't upshift if you hit the red line. Downshifts are somewhat rev matched. It's not. It's fine for the year. I'm sure it was more than acceptable. This also has Saab's all-wheel drive system called cross-wheel drive, abbreviated XWD, which I find to behave a lot like Audi's Quattro system. And if you look at the way it splits power and torque vectors, it seems to be a carbon copy, if I'm honest. I will say that what I noticed right away, because before this I had a lease, it was a 2021 Audi A4, hydraulic steering. I don't think I ever really want to go back to electronic steering if I can help it, because you just get so much more information through the steering wheel with the hydraulic system, as far as just road surface and just what the front wheels are doing and how they're compressing under braking and cornering. And it's just so much more involving versus some of the new electronic power steering systems are very good as far as steering ratio and being very direct, but you're just not getting a lot of information through your main control here. far as the interior goes, it's there's definitely a lot of unique stuff going on here. Saab wise, it has the cool Saab air vents, the completely overthought cup holders. But materials wise, it is sort of General Motors ish in here, which is understandable. It's not the best. This particular one has 67,000 miles, and the interior is in fantastic shape. The buttons aren't scraped off with fingernails and the usual things you find in cars of this era with this kind of plastic. It's actually been very well maintained. But yeah, the seating position is very good. The seats are fantastic for the car. They're just about perfect. They're very cushy, but they're also very supportive and extremely comfortable. Yeah, seat-wise, it's up there with most comfortable in a car I've owned. And when I was shopping for this car, even though I didn't know I was shopping for this car, when I was shopping for a car, I looked at all the usual suspects, and just nothing, jumped out at me. S4, 335i, C350s, I believe they were making at this time, or C300. Those were a little uninspiring to drive. But being a car person, it's just a lot. It's just something else to get to know. And when you go to these car events and stuff, you won't see another one of these. I mean, you'll see 5 Porsche GT3s, and you'll see one of these, and it's the one you brought. So that part of it is cool. The exclusivity factor, you cannot be beat. And underneath the skin, it's a car you can totally still get parts for, just because the drivetrain, I don't know if it's still in production, but it was in production for a long time across many models across the world, and it was a shared platform. So that part's good. Little miscellaneous body part things can be hard to find, but not impossible, because it shares a lot of the stuff with the 9.3. So in the Turbo X, you get all-wheel drive, you get the bespoke wheels, which I love. I don't think I could ever change these wheels. You get specific bodywork to this model, and the exclusive color, the seats, and then the carbon fiber interior trim. So how does it drive? Well, it's interesting. It does have a feeling of heaviness, and I'm sorry, the curb weight escapes me. I'm gonna guess it's in the 3,600 pound range. And while it does feel a little front heavy, it's very glued down and grippy. We're coming into a series of tight corners here, understeer inducing corners, I would say, even kind of downhill off camber. And quite bumpy, if I'm honest. But let's see how she does here. Oh, we got a wet corner here, excuse me. Can feel a lot of torque vectoring like activities happening, but it does it pretty seamlessly. And it's got old school on or off traction control, which is nice. You do have to go into some weird menus in the gauge cluster there and find it with the buttons, so it's not quite so easy, but once it's off, at least it's off. Honestly, not that it matters that much in this car because it is so glued down. This one also has Michelin's on it. We all know those are great. Now this car off the line, and it's I think much of it due to the transmission and its old school turbo power delivery, isn't gonna blow your mind. But where this car is fast, even in a contemporary context, is in the mid-range punch. So I have it in sport mode, so I'm gonna take it up to about 40 miles an hour, and then I'm gonna put my foot down, and hopefully it'll translate to camera that it pulls quite hard. Gives a nice shove. And I will say, I didn't know till I recorded it from the outside, it makes an amazing noise with its factory exhaust. I don't think that needs any modification whatsoever. Yeah, this car, it's just built to be a daily driver for people who like to drive quickly. It isn't a 14/10ths car, it's more of an 8/10ths car. It's not something you really want to just back it into a corner. It's a little more subdued, glued down. It doesn't like to hang revs way up high. If you just keep it in that mid-range and just kind of slow in, fast out, it's great, and it just eats up miles on an interstate. I will say the ride is, at low speeds, it's a little stiff for my taste. It's a little bouncy over imperfect imperfections and potholes, but once you get it up to speed and the suspension's loaded up, it's really good. Like it really deals with kind of surprise bumps in one undulation. Like it doesn't get unsettled, it just kind of sticks. It just kind of sets itself and lets you press on. So it's very impressive from that standpoint. I'd be interested to do some more research on the development of this car, because it really feels like people who knew what they were doing took part in its development. It's just got legs. This car is completely factory, with the exception of I replaced the air filter. And before you guys jump in the comments and say, you know, that actually doesn't help your... I don't care. I like that noise. This noise. So, that's the only reason. We'll say fuel economy if you stay in the boost. Not good. Miss Saab. I miss seeing them around. You know, I would love to see what they'd be doing now. Yeah, they just went their own way and really didn't give a shit what anyone else was doing or what the industry was doing. And there's still enough Saab weirdness, despite this being a GM production, to make this car completely unique when viewing it today. Yeah, ergonomically, everything's pretty well set up. The ignition key down here does take a little to get used to, but I'm used to it now. Just enough to confuse me when I get in other cars I may want to drive. Yeah, wow. This is just... Oh, there you go. Yeah, you can't feel it moving power side to side and changing the wheel speed between the same axle. Yeah, they have programmers available for this car, which they call a Stage 0 tune, which will give you, I think it's 320 horsepower and 400 pound-feet of torque. Now, if I end up keeping this longer, I may do that, because you can return it to its stock form of tune at any given time. My butt and my spidey sense tells me that this car just has more to give. Now, values on these have shot up in recent years. I unfortunately didn't buy this one before they did, but I think I bought in on the way up. And I think as more people become aware of it, again, because me being a very avid car fan, was not even aware this was a thing, I think this car needs more notoriety, because for me it's like the best sports sedan no one's ever heard of. And it's European through and through. This doesn't feel anything like a WRX or an Evo or anything. It's a little more muted and a little less race car, a little more back roads car. But for where I'm at in life, this is what I need to be driving every day, something like this. And you have complete anonymity to people who have no idea what it is. It's just a black sedan. But when car people see it, they have questions, they want to talk about it. And if you see another Saab person, then you're going to be late for wherever you're going, so they're going to want to talk your ear off about this. And, oh, God, I've been looking for one of these, blah, 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 I can't believe that. So just beware. If you don't like to talk to people with quirky glasses, frames, and turtlenecks, don't buy this car.